Sounds a little different. All right, good morning, everybody. Today is yeah. He's not here by the time the phone rings, then you know. All right, so today is Daf Mem Hey Mem Vav. We got a lot of work today. Gemara moves. So let's take it away. And away we go. So we had a machlokes regarding the amount of a Sanhedrin that have to show up for Egla Rufa to go ahead and measure from the location of where the body is found in the nearest town with the Beis Din. So we had a machlokes. Is it 5? Is it 3? Machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and I believe it's Rabbi Shimon. So Zok the Gemara 2 lines on the top. And so they learned 5 because there's 2 words that were used there that were plural. So each one is 2 and 2 plus 2 is 4, but you can't have a base in shekels, so you have 5. So Elamiyata, it says v'yatzu, right? And they go out, which is plural shnayim u'madadu, and they measure shnayim. So Rabbi Yehuda harekan tisha. So therefore you should add 4 more. It should be instead of 5, should be 9. Rabbi Shimon harekan shiva. It should be 3 plus 4 is 7. So Rav says, no, you can't use those 2 words there. Those are for different drugs. Look at the time on the Bryce. It says the Yetsu. Hey, the Yetsu means that you need the Dayanim to do it, and not the Shluchim, and not their messengers to measure for them. Even if it was right outside the city, nevertheless, you buy the Shemitz last week from Medida. No, because they still have to go ahead and measure because it's a mitzvah to go ahead and do it, even though it's obvious as to which town it is. And Masnitz and the lake Rabbi Yezben Yaakov, like Rabbi Yezben Yaakov, the time in the Bryce of Rabbi Yezben Yaakov Vaymer. Zikanecha Zayt Sanhedrin, Shatecha the Melech the Kohen Gadol. It says Zikanecha refers to the Sanhedrin has to be there as we mentioned, and Shatecha, excuse me, and Shatecha. One just pass the tissues behind you. That says Shavtecha. That is referring to who else has to come out and measure and be involved in this process is the king and the Kohen Gadol. We get from the words Shavtecha from Shofet, the Melech the Sieve. King it says Melech b'mishpat Yamid Eretz. So it says the word b'mishpat, right? Which Shavtecha and Kohen Gadol. The Sieve was the Kohen and Levim el Shofet the Shriya. It says you come to the Kohen and the Levim. And their judge, i.e., the one who's in charge of them, which is referring to the Kohen Gadol. So therefore, the Kohen Gadol and the Melech also have to be involved. See, a question was asked. Rabbi Yezben Yaakov, the Melech, the Kohen Gadol, who the Palik, he just says, no, you just have to add the Melech and the Kohen Gadol. But the Sanhedrin, Ikar Yehuda, Ikar Shosri, and he holds okay by when it comes to the Sanhedrin, you either need 3 or 5, depending on who Rabbi Yezben Yaakov holds like. A Duma. The Sanhedrin Nami Palik. Maybe also perhaps he argues maybe on the amount of Sanhedrin. Adika Kul Sanhedrin. Maybe you need all the Sanhedrin, all the 71 members. And Amar of Yosef, Tashma, come and listen. And why would you think that? So it says, Matzan Zakin Mamre Avipagi Behemira Alea. So you have the halacha of Zakin Mamre, one of the Dayanim, basically go against the Psak of the Sanhedrin. He does his own, right? So he's like rebelling against the Sanhedrin. So there's a special halacha, a special punishment when it comes to the Zokim Mamre. So let's say he goes ahead and let's say he found them in Beipagi, which is let's say an area, sort of an anonymous area outside Yerushalayim, or a generic term. So right outside Yerushalayim, and there was a psak there where he can't do this on Shabbos, and he violates it. So you maybe think, okay, this qualifies as a Zokim Mamre Tamalemer. Therefore, it says the count of Elisa Elamakom. It says over there Elamakom Malamisham Makom Goyim. Now we see the halacha over there is that you need to be in the makom, you need to be in the lishkas hagazis, you have to be in the mikdash. So if that's where the psak has to be, and he has to rebel against that psak, but if he rebels against a psak that's done outside, let's say in Beipagi, that would not qualify as a Zokim Mamre. Now, the Nafik how many of the Sanhedrin we're talking about were Beipagi? Elim and the Nafik Mitzasa. If it's just, let's say, a minority of them were out there and they had a psak and he went against it, so the minute he nafdika the gavai kavasi tzvirlu. Maybe the ones that were left in Yerushalayim agree with him, and therefore he's not rebelling against all the members of the Sanhedrin. So rather, it has to be all of them. Now, Question is, ulamai. Why is all the Sanhedrin within Beit Hagi? Right? Was it a day trip? Was it a good Sifa? Something? What was going on there? If it's for a matter of Rishus, in other words, they went down that for some sort of mitzvah as a day trip. Mibati Nafki. Who says they're who says they're all allowed to go out? The pasuk says Sharecha Shorech Agan Sahar Al Yetzer HaMezah. So it says over there that from the Shorech is from their navel, from the middle. This is reference to the Sanhedrin who were in the middle of the country, in the middle of Eretz Yisrael. That so it says Agan Sahar, that they were is referring to like a crescent, a moon crescent, and was that shape, which is the way the Sanhedrin sat. So the Sanhedrin sat in the middle of the country like this. You shouldn't have less than the amount you dilute. So when you dilute wine, you put a third water. So therefore, you can't dilute the Sanhedrin more than a third, i.e., you need to leave a third, which is a third of 70 is approximately 23. So if one of the Sanhedrin have to leave, if you have at least 23 members who are behind, then you can go out. If not, in a yaitz, you can't go out. So once again, how do you have all the members of the Sanhedrin? Right? They couldn't just leave down because you have to leave at least 23 back. So rather, the Sanhedrin must have went for a mitzvah. There was a commandment. So Lamai, what type of mitzvah? So La Lamadida is Egla. Is it not to go ahead and to go out to where a body was found and to go ahead and to measure to the closest town? And therefore it's the opinion of Rabbi Yaakov. No, that's not true. Maybe it's to go ahead, and maybe they had to go ahead and add to the city, even Yerushalayim or Azaros or the courtyard outside the Mikdash. Those require all of this Sanhedrin. Because at times we're going to the Mishnah, you can only use the basin of 71 to go ahead and add to it. You need all of them. So that's why they're out. However, Tani Kavasi Rav Yosef, is in support of Rav Yosef that perhaps there is a sheet that holds all the Sanhedrin required for Egel Rufa. So Matzan Abeis Pagi V'Amira. If one of the Zakeni found that is by Beis Pagi and he rebels against the Psak, Mamir Lehen could go in Shiyas Lamadidas Eglah. If they go, for example, which it says beferish the measuring of the eglah or the hoisif or the zaros to add to the city or the courtyards, you might think that rebellion is considered rebellion. Therefore, it says says you get up and you go to the place. See over there, they need to be the makam. So you see from that brayta that there is a sheet that holds that the eglah rufa does require all 71 numbers. Now, next case in the Mishnah, we said the body has to be found on the ground. If you find it hanging in a tree, underneath a pile of rubble, let's say someone tried to bury it, or floating on the water, that does not qualify as Eglah Rufa. Now, so Leva Masnis and Rabbi Yehudi. Let's say our mission is the opinion of Rabbi Yehudi, the Loi Rabbanan, and not the opinion of Rabbanan. The Tanya we learn in the Brayso says V'shachachta Aimer B'Sodeh. So there's a halacha by Shicha that if one goes and forgets, let's say he harvested some of his stuff, he placed it down, and then he forgot it out in his fields, so he can't go out and go retrieve it and bring it back. Or perhaps we'll soon see that even if he left standing stalks, he forgot to do that area of the field. That's called shikha, and you have to leave it for the poor. Now, so the pasuk says, it says in the field, prat l'tamon, that excludes something which is covered. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that which is covered. Over there is not shikha. So it's over here, if a body is covered, then it's not. It will not qualify for eglah rufa. It's the same like Rabbi Yehuda. Because they darken the word besad in the field. The rabbis says to include something which is covered. So which is the opposite. So Marav, no, I feel to Marav, but he says Rabban and Hasaman out of the crop, Hasaman out of the crop. You have to look at each psukim. Each one is darshan separately, and therefore the word besada perhaps comes to be used differently. How so? So it says, let's see. The ksiv, the pasuk says this aleph. How can we know the crow? The ksiv, right? So it says, so it says when you find a corpse, so wherever you find it, right? Bi'adama, and then it says bi'adama prat l'tamon. So first we think it's everything, and then it says on the ground, so it must be excluding something which is covered. Also over there is Hasmin Yad Lekra. The pasuk says Ki Titzor Ksirecha. Katzircha b'sodecha v'shachachta omer. So it says, well, over there, when you're harvesting, right, your harvest in your field, and you forget the omer. So sheikha dumer dikatzir. So we learn over there that the forgetting has to be similar to the harvesting. Makitzir begalui. So for the pasuk we say, just like the harvest is something which is galui, which is open. Afshicha begalui. So too, the standard is it has to be open. It cannot be covered. So kasav rachmana. Then the Torah says basadeh. So it says basadeh. So what does that come to include? We already have everything that's exposed. It must be coming to teach you something else. Larabos to include as a Talmud. It must include something which is covered. So therefore, each one is different, and you can't say our Mishnah is not like the Rabbanon, because maybe the Rabbanon would darshan, right? Please, yeah, would darshan differently. Rabbi Yehuda Nami typically Mishivka Duma de Katsu. So Rabbi Yehuda, right? Why don't you also darshan in the case of Shikha? Right, that it has to be, if that's the case, so you should learn the pasuk the same way that it has to be galui, just like the katsira. So he says einach inami. So that's einach. He learns that case. Bella besada lamali. If that's the case, what does it do with the word besada? Because in other words, if you already learn that anything but galui, right? In other words, that it cannot be covered from the other limits. So what does he do with the word besada lamali? So the Rabbi Shikha Kama to go ahead and include a forgotten stock, something which wasn't harvested yet. Rabbanan and Shikha Kama Minavu. What do they do with that? Because they use the word besada differently. So Nafkalu must be Titzar Katsircha Besadecha. Besadcha? Yeah. Besadcha. There's a reason I'm not about correct. So Rabbi Yehuda is it Besadecha? Right. Right. So over there, say they learn about Besadecha. Rabbi Yehuda, what does he do with the word your field? In other words, why doesn't he learn that from the field? So he says Rabbi Yehuda look at Rabbi Avo, I'm Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Avo, I'm Rabbi Elazar. Parat l'shitzafu ayman l'sech sadeh chaveru. Let's say he has his stalks and they blow. Let's say, right? They float, right? They blow onto his neighbor's yard, right? And he forgets it there. So you might think that, this is shikha. So no, it has to be on your field. If it's on my friend's field, that's not shikha. I can go back and go get that and don't have to go ahead and give that or leave that for the poor. Rabbanan, and so whether Rabbanan know that halacha, mi besadecha. They said, but it could have just said besada. It says besadecha. So therefore, to learn both halachas. Rabbi Yehuda besadecha loy mashmela. He does not learn that drush. So boy, Rabbi Yirmiyah safu aimrim l'sech sadehu. So we just mentioned similar to this case. So let's say they flew the aimrim, the stalks l'sech sadehu into his field, and they were his own, but into a different field. So ma'u, but it's. So avir sada kisada dami. Do we say if it's, let's say, not on the ground of the field, right? It's on something else. It's considered in the field. Or la kisada dami, or it's not considered to be on your field. So Rav Kahana Rav Papi. Some say it was Rav Kahana Rav Zvid. So she teacher lay made Rabbi Avo. Let's learn from that which we just saw from Rabbi Avo in the name of Rabbi Elazar. Dalmar Ralish Shitzafu Aymin L'Sei. Right? So it says over there that he's exempt if it flies and it lands on something in his friend's yard. But it's dafka b'chavera in lo. It's dafka only in his friend's yard is potter. But let's say it floats and lands on something else. It's hanging in the air in his own yard. He would be chayiv, even though it's not on the adama. But nevertheless, since it's in the avir of his yard, that qualifies as his field. The Gemara says, no, you can't make a deal. Only if it flies right in his friend's yard. However, but if he goes ahead and he places it in his friend's field, it would still be high for shiva. But it's not in your field. So you can't make a deal from that case because we're talking about flying in your friend's field. You want to make a deal on dafka your friend's field, not yours. So the mighty right to make the deal on the word it flies there. Hello, rather, it must be that if his friend's field, even if he placed it there, it's always considered to be potter. The reason why we find is because that's how it got to his friend's field, because you only find the scenarios. We'll soon see why. If it, let's say, flies on its own there or blows there. Touch my, come listen. A guy takes an aimer, a stalk, and to take it to the city. And he places it upon another stalk. So you have a stalk and have a stalk. The shachlu, and then he forgets it there. So what is the status of it? Can he go back and get either one of them? Hatachta, we'll soon see why. So hatachta and the shicha, the bottom one is considered to be shicha. The elyon and the top one, eina shicha, is not considered to be forgotten. And Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Eimer and Rabbi Shimon, shneim eina shicha. No, neither one of them are shicha. Why? Hatachta mipnei shutamon. The bottom one is because it's considered to be covered. A sign which is covered is not cannot qualify as forgotten. The elyon and the top one is not mipnei shutzaf because it's not on the ground; it's floating. And ad kan lo pligel b'tachton, and they're only arguing the b'tachton about the elyon nivrakol lo yavi shicha. Everyone else is not shicha because it's floating. So you see something which is floating does not qualify as shicha. It's not considered soda. Answer no. Shani hasam kaven the ichzik bay zakabay. No, over there he had it in his hand. He put it down. So shicha is only if you forgot to deal with it, right? But if I had it, I acquired it, and I put it down, and then I forgot about it, I can go back the next day because I didn't forget it. So therefore, that's the reason why it classifies. Why do you have to talk about it that you put it on another one? I feel if you place it on the ground, it should also, right, then not be shicha. You're right. So why did it say that case? Because of the bottom of the halacha that if it was covered. But it doesn't say because he already acquired it. The yado, it says because it was floating. That's the reason why the top one is patur on shicha. Same of bnei shu kitzaf. It's like tzaf. And Amar Abaye hareini kiben azai. So one time Abaye says, I am kiben azai, I have a shukim Tveria who is always available in the shukim Tveria to answer any question. Ask me whatever you want. So a certain member of the rabbinate asked Abaye, Shnei cholim zeh al gabe zeh. So you have two corpses that were found, one on top of the other. And actually, if you measure from one, it's closer to town A, and you measure from the other one, it's closer to town B. What are the chances? But it's possible. Right? What are the chances? We don't go over what are the chances. So mehechan hu ma'ided. So which one do you go ahead and measure from? Do we hold min b'mino havi tamud? That's something which is covered by its own species, all right? And the min b'mino, notice they're both corpses. Min b'mino havi tamud is considered recovered, right? And therefore, the bottom one is not considered to be open in a field, right? Because it's covered by another corpse. And also, that if one thing is on top of the other thing, it's not considered to be floating in the air since a corpse is on top of the corpse. Like the top corpse is like it's on the ground. So therefore, in that case, in such a case, we would say that you measure for the top one. Or perhaps we say, do we say that two things, one on top of the other, is considered to be floating? It's not on the ground, and therefore the top one you can't go ahead and measure from because it's right floating. It was like tafal gaviyamayim, right? But something underneath its own kind is not considered to be covered, and therefore that one is considered to be uncovered on the ground, and therefore you measure for that one. Or maybe you can say the other ones, the other option. That min b'mino havi tamun, that the bottom one is considered to be covered, it's not exposed on the ground. Umin b'mino havi tzaf, and the one on top is considered not to be on the ground but it's floating, and therefore in this such a case, he would not be able to measure it neither from the top or the bottom. So Abaye answered, Tanisua, let's look at the price that was just turn the page that was just discussed on the bottom of an aleph. A person has it in his hand, he's going to go ahead and take it to the city, and then he places it on another star. The shachla, he forgets over there. Hatachta and shicha, the bottom one is shicha, but elyon and shicha, and the top one is not considered to be shicha. Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda Eimer, no, Rabbi Shimon shneim ein shicha. Neither one of them are shicha because hatachta mipnei shutamon, but elyon mipnei shutzaf. The bottom one is considered to be covered, and the top one is considered like it's floating.
I think the one was not cared about whether it was where it was being measured from, or whether it was even in the equal.
Well, they wanted to know where
The answer is that the answer that they're giving is that neither one, because one is covered. And one is floating.
that was the third option, right? The third option was maybe it doesn't qualify at all for Agarufa, right? Like you're saying, right? But the first options were if one of them can qualify, then you measure from that one. But if, like you're saying, right, 100% true, like you're saying, if each one has a reason why it doesn't work, now one is considered to be covered and that was considered to be floating, neither of them qualify, then there's no Egel roof at all in this case. Or do you start measuring if, it depends what you hold.
You were reading from Rashi at the beginning of the daf that like from the word umadadu, that there's something to the measuring itself. You still have to know which one, even if it's clear that you know what city,
You have
still have to know which body you're measuring from.
Right. What was bothering in this case is, let's say you measure from each one, right? Let's just in theory. So why can't each city will bring their own? And if this one's close to that city and this one's close to the other city, right? Then you can do it. Right. So over here is, does each one qualify? And therefore, then it's almost like two separate cases. But do they qualify? Right? Do they? Similar to what your Mark is saying. So let's learn from this case. There's a machlokes over here between, I think it's Tanakama and Rav Shimon Yehuda. Shimon Yehuda says in there, Shimon Shneim ain't a sheikham because hatachlim meishu tamon va'alim b'nei shutzav. So let's say in this case, right? So now. So Svura Dahani Tanai Rabbi Yehuda Svirlu. So these both Tanaim hold like Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar B'Sadeh Pralutamon. In other words, you have to hold that it has to be in the field to exclude something which is covered does not qualify as Egel Rufa. So my la b'ha kamifli is not the machlokes here. The Marslaver mean b'mino havi tamon. One held that mean b'mino if something is covered by its own thing, then it's considered to be covered. Or Marslaver levi tamon. No, if it's covered by its own thing, then it's not considered covered. Therefore, the bottom one does qualify as Egel Rufa. And go ahead and measure it. The answer is low. Rabbi Yehuda, if you hold like Rabbi Yehuda, right, in such a case. That the southern part of the Talmud, right? So the Kuli Alman Bin Bamino Havi Talmud, right? Then he could even say that if they all held Bamino is considered to be covered. It could be machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan, right? Whether even things that are what's it called? When it comes to shichra, right, which is different than, doesn't necessarily have to be the same level as Egel Rufa. Maybe shichra, something is covered or not covered, is the machlokes. Rabbanan, right? How does the Rabbanan come in? The Rabbanan hold like the Rabbanan, and Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, who holds that that something which is covered is not considered to be shichra, and the Rabbanan would say no, even if it's covered, it's considered to be shichra. So if that's the case, then my area why did it say on another one? Afilo offer Nami. Why did it say that it was covered by another corpse? Why didn't it say it was covered by anything, right? Or excuse me, in the other case, why didn't it say of the case in the case of Sheikhah that was covered by anything? Why did you have to say that it was covered by specifically a case of a tapa being placed upon it? Saying that it's not be right. However, the reason why they did is that even if you place right one thing on another, that yes, ein economy is for sure considered to be covered if it's dirt. But even if it's covered by min b'mino, if it's covered by produce and in itself is produce, nevertheless, it's considered to be covered and it's not subject to shifla. According to the opinion holds that covered produce is not shifla. Fine. So we learned chalal. So now it says the body has to be pierced and not necessarily strangled. And the guy has to be dead. He has to be killed, and not fighting for his life and the throngs of death. And be adoma on the ground, like Talmud begal, and not hidden in the gal and Neifel, and he has to be lying on the ground. Like Be'ilan, and can't be hanging in a tree and besade in the field, like Tzafal B'nei can't be floating in the water. And those are Aimer Bekulon Imaya Cholol Orphan. No, all of them, as long as he was Cholol, then as long as it was basically stabbed or with some sort of knife or sword, then we go orphan. Then we go ahead and we do Egel Rufa. So Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yisrael Yehuda, Amar Lola Rabbi Elazar, Iyata Ma'ida Shim Haya Chanu Kumuta Ba'ashba Shein Orphan. Well, yeah, at least you don't agree that if you find someone who's strangled, let's say in the garbage dump, you at least admit in that case you don't do Egla Rufa. And I was at least hold by the din of the diak of Chalal, right? So right? So we see over here that clearly there's and Hakanami. We should also have the other drushes of Be'adam V'Lo Tamim Begal and V'Lo Tamim Begal, Knife V'Lo Tali Be'ivan, and Besada V'Lo Tzavak Be'Mayim. You should also hold the other diukim that the body can't be floating in the water, or hanging in a tree, or hidden under something else. So because you have the drasha, so no answer is no. Rabbi Eliezer Cholol Yisir Aksiv. He says we're Cholol twice. Therefore, a Cholol B'dafka cannot be strangled. As opposed to the other ones, those necessarily Rabbi Elazar does not hold to those diukim. I'm sorry, because he's not dead. I guess he's maybe you find him while he's yeah.
Still kind of
Right. That's right. So Nimsa some of the stuff right. Sharuba Aidek Kasabim. It goes to happen.
Why should you mention it even?
So maybe it could be that you find him while he's still alive and then he dies. That's not considered to be someone who was left, for dead.
It has to be.
He has to already be dead. You can't find him.
If he's switching and then.
Right, then he dies. Doesn't qualify. Right. So you find a body close to the border, close to the Goyish border or to a Goyish city, then there's not a little bit of them. See, kimatze, pralamatze, right? It has to be something you find which is infrequent, not something which is more common. All the shir Hashem a basin, or the city does not have a basin. So the beina ziknair because it says the pasuk says to the elders of the ziknair, which is referring to the Diana. And ein moedin el leir v'chulei, right? We don't measure only the city with the basins. Gemara says the pshita. We just sort of said there's a halacha. Came in the Tana, the ear shame a basin. Ana yadina they moedin el leir basin. We know that it's only measured if you can't use a city without the basin. So of course we measure to the city with the closest basin. Gemara says no. How come that's Gufa was teaching. Okay, the times learn brayza. Menayin shim needs samach leir shame ba basin shemanichin oisa moedin leir sheish ba basin. How do we know that you find him close to a city that does not have a basin that never lets you measure to a city that has a basin? Therefore, it says V'lachu zikna ir. You take to the zikna ir. Mikol Malcolm knows wherever there is zikna ir, then you take to that city. So it has in order to go ahead and measure to, then it has to have zikanim. Fine. Now the Mishnah says Nimsa Mechavin Bein Shtei Aros Shtei Mevias Shtei Gos. Even Rabbi Eliezer. So it says Rabbi Eliezer, if you find a body, a corpse which is exactly in between two cities, then you know what? Each one brings, and therefore the resulting is each city brings their own Egla Rufa. Even Rabbi Eliezer. Another halacha of Yerushalayim, Mevia Egla Rufa. Yerushalayim does not qualify for Egla Rufa. And then let's say you find his head in one place and his body in another place. Then a malichin harosh etzel aguf. Rabbi Eliezer says, Rabbi Eliezer, you bring the head to where the body is. Rabbi Kiva Emir haguf etzel harosh. No, you bring the body where the head is. And ma'ayin hayimaydin, from where would they go ahead and measure from? Rabbi Eliezer Aimer mitiburo, from his navel. Rabbi Kiva Aimer mechaytma, from his nose. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Aimer b'makom shenasa chalal mitzvah. No, the place where he comes to chalal, he becomes killed, basically his neck. So what's the reason? So Zak Gemara, so my time at Rabbi Eliezer, what's the reason Rabbi Eliezer says that 2 towns can bring? So it says that it is possible for something to be exactly equidistant. And therefore, we're going to krova. If you look krova, and it says the closest could even be the closest plural, the 2 closest towns, because if they're both the same. Why is that? The Makarav says the Rishta, right? So that the town that you inherited. That Yerushalayim was not divided amongst the tribes, and therefore no one inherited Yerushalayim. So therefore, Yerushalayim does not qualify as the city that you inherited. So it says, let's say you find your head in one place and the body in the other place, so you bring the head to the body to the head. So what's this machlokes about? If you're talking about from where do we measure from? So the Sefer is talking about them. From where would they go ahead and measure? So you confer for that. Then the ratio we're not talking about measuring. So Rabbi Yitzchak b'meis mitzvah kanim kaim. The halacha, if a body is found, right, you have to go ahead and bury the body wherever the body dies. You bury it in that makom, right? So you bury the body in that makom. So the question is, what is the makom? If the head is in one place and the body is in another place. So when it comes to burying it, the heka, is wherever you find it, that's where you bury it. However, find the head in one place and the body in another place. Then Machlokas, then Malikan or Sheitzal Gufi, Rebbe Eliezer says you bring the head to the body. Rebbe Kiva Imer Haguf Eitzel HaRosh. You bring the head, the body to the head. But my Kamifki was Machlokas Martzaver Gufi Beduf the Nafil, that the guy died in his place. But Reisha denied the Nafil, and then the head rolled off. But my seven, no, Reisha Hekel the Nafil. The head is where the person died. And Gufa the Ratios, and it was the body that moved from there, right? The body walked off. And from where they measure from? So we said the navel or from the nose, the nostrils. One says the one's life, the main life is from the nose, the nostrils. Is from the navel. So Lemaki Hanik Taimes is Heichan Havlad Neitzer, right? So where is the fetus, right? Where is the baby? Where is it formed? So it says Miroshman said, Imi Ata Geizi, right? From the womb of the mother, Ata Geizi. What does Geizi mean? Vaimer Gazi Nizach Veshliko V'chul. It says over there, right, by Gazi, that you grow out the hair, referring to the head. So Gazi is a reference to the head. So therefore, the child grows from the head in the womb of his mother. Now, Shalom Tibura from his navel said, why? It says, so it says over there, I guess, from his sharash, from his navel, then he grows from there. So maybe it's the same I guess. The word says, no, I feel the same Abishol. Even you say Abishol. Ad kan like come out Abishol El in Yitzir. That's only calling from development. The Kimizatzir Vlad Mitziasami, that's hard. When it's developed from the navel, then it grows in there. But when it comes to life, everyone agrees it comes to Nasa Gasiv. The Pasuk says, Kol Asher Nishmas Ruach Chaim V'Yapov, right? Everything that has, right, soul, life in his nostrils. So you see it's from the nostrils. But the question is, do you do it from the place of where you first created, or do you do the place where the life is? And that's what we measured up. From his neck, my time was reasonable as Yaakov. You'll see the pasuk says, right? So it says over there on the neck of the Chalei Rishayim, we're talking about Chalot. So to over here, we're referring to the neck. Fine. Now you missed it. Niftaru Zikne Yerushalayim. So Zikne Yerushalayim come, they measure. Now we're done. They go. Now Zikne Oisa here. Now your turn. The local Batidin, their turn to take over. So maybe in Eglas Bakar, they bring a calf, Asher Lemishka Baal, that it never had a yoke, Vein Hamum Paisabo, and we don't care if it has a certain mum, right? It's not like a carbon, right? Let's say it has a cataract or some other mum, that is okay. Umaridi Naisa Lanachal Asan, then you go ahead and you bring it down to a very rocky terrain valley. And Esan Kavashmo, and Esan is like a reference is kosher, right? It's hard, right? And Alpishain and Esan, and it's a case where it's not hard, then there is still a kosher. But Oifin instead of kaifis mechura, and they go ahead and take a cleaver and they whack it from behind. Umekaima aser milizura umiliavud. You can't go ahead and plant or work that land forever after. You go ahead and sow linen, or go ahead and chisel stone. In other words, you can't do any sort of avoda in that place in this valley of growing, but you can do other forms of work, not of the ground.
Which valley or one near the city you're at?
The one, look over the, I guess, a close rocky terrain.
That's what they call Nahali.
Right, yeah, right. It's a generic term. And Zigne Oisa Ir Reichs, in the beginning of those town, they go ahead and they wash their hands. V'mayim, v'makom Arif, in the place where the capital, the cap Shadagla, and they say, Yadinu lo shavkos adam azev and inu lo ru. So our hands did not spill his blood, and we did not see this person. Also, Zigne based in Shefki Dam. We do actually think that there's a Canaan, they were the ones who murdered them. Ella Shalei Ba Al Yadena, but rather they're saying is, hey, he didn't come to us, so we sent them along, without without caring. Or we didn't see him and just let him be by his own. Had we seen him, we would have taken care of him. That's what they're saying. The Kohanim, now the Kohanim, Yisrael, Ashker Padisa. So they say, right, atone for your people that would be redeemed. Do not go ahead and place innocent blood amongst your nation of Israel. And nevertheless, but didn't say they should get atonement. Ella Ruach HaKodesh Mitzvah Sarasta, right? Rather, the Ruach Kodesh will inspire them to say, right? Whenever you go ahead and you do this, then you'll have the blood will provide atonement for you. Fine. All right. So the Gemara says, the Gemara, you moom paisel be'egla b'kavachimer. Maybe a moom should go ahead and apostle from a kavachimer. Ma parashein has shanim paislas behed. So now egla rufa should it refers to a calf, right? It has to be a calf in its first year. So over there, we don't, it's by egla rufa. We actually care in terms of his age. It should only be a year. But when it comes to paraduma, we don't care the age of the paraduma. Moon paiselba, and over there we see that a moon passes by. So agla shana paislas. So when it comes to agla, which we do care about the age, and the she moon paiselba, it isn't obvious that we should care about it. The shani hasam, the America over there it says asher ain ba moon, right? Ba moon paisel, ain moon paisel agla. So we learn from there the word ba. In it, only paraduma is a mum possible, but it is not possible by an agla rufa. So this paislas, but so that's the case. Maybe other types of work should not possible it. Right. So it says by the paraduma, right? You place some sacks upon the animal. It's considered to have done work, and it's possible for it to be a paraduma. Egla, and when it comes to Egla, Ashet Timshach has to go. He can't just place it on. That doesn't qualify as work until it goes out and carries it. So we see over there that it's we're more makbid over there. The Shani Pora, the Alfinan, all Me'egla. No, we learn Exer Shabbat of all from Egla. So Egla Nami Tisi all Me'para. So we should learn all that any form of work. So Gemara says no, Hamia Rachmana Ba. It says the word Ba only the by the paraduma and not by Egla. So I beglanamic seed ba. I over there because by Egla Rufa also says the word ba, whereas Gim over here. Egla's bakar shir lo ubad ba, right? There's the word ba there. So maybe ba daf Egla Rufa. We can't learn paradu from Egla Rufa. So ba how we boy you take kachim to exclude kachim. In other words, when it comes to kachim, you're allowed to have an animal do avoda, right? There's no problem of you bring your chatas to from an animal that once was doing work, as long as it has no blemish. Kachim delay possible, but avoda doesn't root it. And so could I. So I'm use at least to become a chaymer egla. So maybe you can think of a chaymer egla. Ma egla shein moon paisa ba avoda paisa. So by egla that of a physical blemish, right, like cataract or something like that, does not pass the animal. But nevertheless, if the animal did work, right, then you can't go carry the yoke. Then you can't go ahead and have the egla rufa. So kachim shemu paselas ba. So by kachim or karbonos, right, then a mum, right, the physical blemish does pass it, and it didn't sheva the paselas bad, right? Obviously, it would pass it. So therefore, it says the word ba to teach you that no, only by egla rufa there's avoda, but we don't care if there's avoda by kachim. And equal mifrach. So you can ask another question. Ma egla shechein shani paselas ba. Right, so it says, well, what do you mean by the egla? Right, you by age passes it. Or it says, "Atu kachim mileka the about shanim." Well, there's also many karbanos that have certain qualifications as to what year the animal can be in of its life. So kisikra lehinach kachim the pasu behu shanim. Right, so it says no. Right, so in other words, so in this case. So we say we need the pasuk. So those kachim that in other words, age is not a difference. In other words, even though there are some that have years, so maybe you don't need it at all. You can learn the kavachimer that way. We're more machmer about eglas. No, but there are those that by kachim we don't care the years, and therefore you need the limud that way. The pasuk behu avodim mehachanafka. So you're telling me that kachim, right, that it doesn't passel through avoda. We learn from over here. So mehasanach, we actually have another source. It says oros. No, Iveris, right? Iveris, right? So Iveris, or Shavar, or Charutz, or Yavelis, or Garav, or Yalepes, Loisikav, Elasha. Right? So it says there, these different psulim of the animal, these different blemishes upon an animal, you can't bring any of these physical blemishes. Only these, right? This disqualifies. So right? But you learn over there the only blemishes possible an animal from karbanos, but not avoda, or it would have said something that was worked. The Gemara says, "No, itzich tzagdas." I mean, hani miliheika the ava ben avodas heter. Maybe that was done. Avodas heter, right? Something that was done. Let's say it was permissible. Let's say it was done during the weekday. Avodas iser, but maybe let's say it was done avodas iser. Maybe it's something different. Maybe an animal did some work on Shabbos. Maybe that disqualifies it. Yeah, the work isn't disqualified during the weekday. But if it worked on Shabbos, maybe it's possible for carbon. So therefore, you need two different sources. Ivonami.
You work without an O,
What?
without an O possible.
No, by a case of carbonos. By carbonos, right? So even if it worked on Shabbos or the Shabbos or Kilayim, whatever it was, for the with worked with the two different species of animals pull the plow together. Nevertheless, that doesn't prohibit this animal from ever being offered as a carbon as long as it has no physical blemishes. But we already have two sources. It says miyad v'necha l'sikru es lechem elokechem mikol ela. Right? So it says over there. It says, and from the hand of right from foreign, so we learn from these. You can't go ahead and if it comes from them, but you could offer an animal that that work was done with it. Maybe only when they're done as chulin, then it's okay for them to avoda. Aval ava behen kshen kachim. But maybe after a person's makdish an animal and then it did avoda, maybe since it did avoda while it was kadosh, maybe then it's possible. Same as the tatzru. Therefore, maybe say it's atzur. Therefore, it says tzricha. No, that's why we need the third source. So Gufa, we are the third wide line on Mem Vav and Aleph. Gufa Marav Yudah Marav Oidah Sakin Psula. We said over there, if you place upon the what's it called by the paraduma, you place it on let's say a bunch of sacks of Psula. But when it comes to the Egla Rufa, then it does not possibly just put on top of it, rather only has to go ahead and start carrying it. So Meisve, it says, Eliel Sharavadis Minai. How do you know other works Minai? So Marta Kavachaimer. Ma Eglashim Shain Moon Paisel, Sharavadis Paisel. So when it comes to Egla, that no physical blemish passes it. Nevertheless, other work passes it. So para when it comes to paraduma shamun paisel, the moon of physical blemish does passel it. Ain't a din Sharavadis Paisel. Right? Isn't it obvious that all types of work should passel it? Right? Even if you just put sackcloth on it. So Gemara says, then he says, but you can say the other way. So Nemar Khan, the Nemar Lahalon, so later on, Malahalon. So it says also, by the Paraduma, right? And it says, by the Eglarufa. So Malahalon Sharavadis Paisless, but Afkan Sharavadis Paisless. Right? So it's over here, other. So my Laimar, why is it add this? You can say Mal Egla Shechen Shanet Paisless, but Inami, Kachim Yochichu, Shemun Paisel Behen. You could say, maybe Egla Rufa is different, that it shouldn't passel it because because Shechen, the years passel it, it's more chamer. Or by Kachim will disprove that because by Kachim, right, they have, even though they can do work, but they can't have physical blemishes, right? Shemun Paisel Behen. They avoid the Paisel Behen, and no avoid the Paisel Kachim. So Nemar Khan, therefore it says all the Nemar Halon, Malon Sharavodas, Afkan Sharavodas, so to all types of work. If that's the case, we learn from over there, Malon Achatim Shach, Afkan Achatim Shach, right? So we learn over there, the adjustment over there is only until it pulls it by Egla Rufa, right? So too it should be by Paraduma. So the answer is no, Tanai, Dika the Maisila Megla, Vika the Maisila Megufa de Par. Some learn from Egla, and therefore, if you learn from Egla, it will not be all types of voda. It would be right, even if you just place it upon, it would be only until it pulls it, right? Just like the Egla. And the other is learning from the Gufa de Para. The Tanya, we learn in Brisa, it says, Ainli Ella, Sharavadis Manai, I know other types of work. Tamalema, Asher Lo Allah Aleha, right? All the Tailashin, the extra words, Asher Lo Aleha means even if it doesn't carry it, you just place it upon it. Mikol Malcolm. Imke matamalim all. If it says all, so all possible bein b'shas avoda bein b'shos avoda, because any an all passes it whether it's supposed to be doing work, or even if it wasn't supposed to be doing work and someone placed upon it, then it would passel it. And Sha'avodas, but other types of, that's one with the yoke, but Sha'avodas, avodas, ain't passes ela b'shas avoda. Those only passel when it comes during this man of the avoda. The ema asher lo alel ol klal, right? Maybe let's say it's a general line. Lo alel did not come upon it. It is a general rule. Anything comes upon it, and all a yoke is prat is specific. So klal prat emechal elamasher prat. So therefore, maybe the only thing that should pass is a yoke, right? All in midach mini lo. So Gemara says no, lo. That's not true because it says asher, the word asher, right? Asher lo alel all, right? It's another generalization. So that's a ribuyu. Therefore, that's a ribuyu that includes all types of voda. The Tani Nami Hachi, similarly, we learned egla. I got it. Similarly, we learned egla in this case. Ainli ela all. I only know a yoke. Sharaba is benign. I don't know other avodas with pas legarufa. Tamalema asher lo ovid ba. It says that which does not work. So Mikol Mako. So if that's the case, it says it didn't do any work. So why do you have to say a yoke, right? So anytime there's a yoke placed upon, if it's not doing work, then it passes it. Shavodas, but when it comes to doing other work, ain't places ela b'shas avoda. It can only passel while it's intentionally doing work. Let's say that is a generalization, and Olin specifically says yoke is prat specific, klal prat, prat. Therefore, the only thing that should passel is something that was specifically mentioned, which was the ol in midiach reni lo. So yes, the yoke and not anything else. So the Gemara answers once again. Asher is a ribuyu. It says the word asher, right? Asher lo it was not doing work, and therefore asher lo ubad ba. Therefore, that is a generalization. That's a ribuyu, and that includes any types of work. And Amar Rabbi Avo. So, how much is the does it have to go ahead and pull the yoke, right? So it has to pull a yoke, but it doesn't, right? But how much does it have to pull it? Bekama. So kamali o. So the amount of an o. So the question was asked: is it the length, right, or the rachba, or the shorter width of it? So Rabbi Yaakov Shemei Ladidim Vershili Minei Rabbi Yechon from Yechon Meshichas Ol Rachba Tefach. It's with a tefach. I limit tefach. Just say tefach. Don't say the rachba tefach. So question one: Shira the ol tefach. The amount that a yoke is supposed to be is a tefach. So the my nafkamin. So what's nafkamin? Who cares how it's supposed to be? So the Gemara says, some of us say it says I'll throw you a yoke, and then you get a yoke, and it's only half a tefach. And say, hey, this is not not standard. You owe me, a bigger yoke. And now Rabbi Yechon ben Shol mipnei ma'amatayra hevi egla benachal. Why did they say bring an egla benachal? Marcos Baruch Yavi davar shlo also peiros, right? Being a young animal that has not made peiros, does not have given off fruits, i.e., children. The yarif and go ahead and decapitate the makom shein ice. Peiros do in a place rocky terrain which does not make peiros. And go ahead and let that be atonement for the person who will no longer be able to go ahead and make peiros. So my Paris, Elam Peruvia. So if it's Peruvu, Elamiata, Zakin Vasaris, right? So anybody who can't have children, let's say he's too old or he's physically, he will never be able to have children. So you don't have a rufa. Ella mitzvahs, rather referring to mitzvahs. Now, as a person can no longer do any mitzvahs, therefore that means he can now his peiros can no longer do peiros, meaning he can no longer do mitzvahs. Therefore, you bring ego rufa. Means like hard rocky terrain. So how do we know it's kasha? Shenamar, the pasuk says Eitzan. So it says over there. So it says Eitzan. So it says Moshevecha v'sim v'sela hinecha. So it says over there they're strong and like place a rock in your nest. So you see over there, that's referring to hard or rocky. Vaymer Shimarim Esriv Hashem Vaysanim Meisei Aretz. Right, so it says over there, right, the mountains should listen, and those are rocky. And there, and how do you know that it's considered to be something that is old? Right, so Shinamaz says Goy Ezan who Goy Me'elam who. Right, Goy Ezan is referring to Goy Elam, so something old and rocky. Go ahead and hit it from a cleaver from behind. So my time of Gamar Rifa Arifa Michata Sofa. Michata Sofa, you do the Malika, right? We take a bird and you go ahead and you decapitate it in the back, right? So to over here, right? You right over here on top over here, remember? Right. So to over here, so you decapitate it with the coin. You use the stump on the back of the neck of the bird. So to over here, Arifa, we do at the back of the calf. And the Kama Asim Israel made of it. And now this place can no longer go ahead and plant. But it says Asher lo yavaba v'lo yada v'lo yizra l'sha'avar divir means that it was not done in the past. And Rabbi Yonasan Aimer lahava, no, it means that you can't do it in the future. Not you pick a place that was never done in the past, right? It's only in the future. You can no longer go ahead and use it there. And Rav Amar lahava. Everyone says in the future you cannot go ahead and plant there. It says you can't plant there. They keep thinking each other, rather only argue in the past. Right? That says that it was never worked. No, it says it just never worked in the future. Therefore, but only for the future. It means so according to Rabbi Yoshia, right? Even in the past, it should never been used. Rabbi Yonasan it was never used. And therefore, it doesn't say it was never used, therefore it could have been used. The word asher means in the past. And even in the past, it was never used. No, the word asher ribu is only talking not about the past, but for the future. You can go ahead and fill a stone there or go ahead and comb flax. So I only know you can't go ahead and sow, right, and plant. How you know you can't do other bows? Right? It says that you shouldn't work at any types of work. Why does it say you should not go ahead and plant? That planting, which is done with the earth itself, that you can't do. So do anything which is done in the ground itself. That would exclude, right, combing flax or chiseling stone, which is not using the ground itself. Let's say there wasn't work is a generalization. Yisrael should not plant is a specification, which is a prat, and klal prat in prat, and therefore only should tell you about planting. Gemara says no, zriya, and therefore you can learn how zriya only planting in the future is asher, but any other types of work in that ground is okay. The word says no, asher. The word says asher is a ribuyu to include all types of work. And the people of the city, they wash their hands with the Tanabon because Zignair. The pasuk says because Zignair. So it says there that they should go ahead. The Zignair of the town that was closest to, they come to the body and wash their hands. Rufa Benachal Shein. So it says over there that they go ahead and they wash their hands benachal in the valley. So Shein Tamalei Maharufa. So why say Harufa again? So Matalei Maharufa. So Al Makom Harifasa Shalaga. It's telling you to go ahead and they do it in the place of the Arifa, the decapitating of the calf. And they say, they know the it says our hands are not supposed to blood and our eyes are not see us. Also, do we think the base actually murdered them? Rather, he did not come to us and we sent him away without food. We did not go ahead and send him away without escorting him away. We never saw him. So Tanya, all right, we should force people to go ahead and escort people. Right, because you see the repayment for escorting, there is no shear. It says, so this is over here when they were conquering. I think it was Zion. This is the beginning of Shoftim. So they were conquering. Was it not Yerushalayim? I forgot right now. So we saw the people outside the city. And I saw the footnotes said it. So they saw people right. So they saw people outside there. They were going to conquer, but they didn't know how to get in. So they saw a person go to as Mavayir show us how to enter. Will do a chesed with you. And he showed them where the entrance was. What the chesed that the entire city was killed by a sword, but his whole family was they got out safely. it says, "Vayelech ha'ish eretz hachitim." So this individual, he destroyed his town. He went to another city. Vayivan Aaron, he built a city. Vayikra Shema Luz, and it was called Luz. And he Shema the Yom Hazeh. So this person, right, this is his reward. Not only did he save his family, he built a city, Luz, which stands until today. And Tanya Luz Shetzayvin Ba Techeles. This is a Luz over there. They make Techeles. He Luz Shabbos Samcherev. This is the city that Samcherev came and did not overthrow it. And the V'chanatzer couldn't destroy it. Even the Malchamavis does not have permission to go ahead and in this town Luz, which was built by this person who did Chesed and basically showed them the way. It was so Ella Zekaim Shabab is not Ella Zekaim Shabab is man shadaitem katzel lehem yaitz in chutz l'chayma, right? Vehain mason, and both people that people with time to die, they wouldn't even die in the city because the Malchamavis was allowed there. Rather, they go outside the town, and there they would die. And this is the Kavachaymer. He didn't even say anything to them. He didn't walk them and show them where the entrance was. Nevertheless, he got this salvation, and for his descendants, Atzaf, Kodaris, until all generations. So Misha, so Levi Baragav. So certainly, Kavachaymer, person goes ahead and discourses someone with his feet. Certainly, he sees he gets reward. And how do you show them? So if he's Amar Befiv, Akam Lahem, he sort of mouthed it. He didn't really tell them. Rabbi Yonasan Amar Besbo, Harel Lahem. He showed it with his finger. He just pointed. And Tanik said, Rabbi Yochanan Mishul Sheknani Zeh Harel Besbo. Karam Hatsaloi Ulazara Atzav Koler. Because this one Kanani he showed with his finger, he got salvation. Him and all his descendants. And Rabbi Shmuel Levi Hamahalach B'derech Ve'eno Levi Yasik with her. A person who's walking doesn't have no escort. You should be Isaac with her. Shnamar. So the pasuk over there says that when a person he's going on his own, right? He should have, I guess, this this chain with him, and that is a reference to divrei Torah that will be around his head and his the Rosh Hashanah in his neck. Shalava Paralav, because of the 4 steps. Why 4 steps? Because it says he went, doesn't say how much. And the is Arba Amos, right? And each step of the is an Amos. So and Paro says he went ahead and he commanded his people to go ahead and send him off. So therefore, because he walked him 4, he got paid back that he was basically enslaved his kids for 400 years. And whoever goes ahead and walks someone for Amos, that person, he's saving him from danger. And so right? He walked him once to a town, and there was a big thing in town. They should have been damaged and got injured, but he was saved because he was escorted in the beginning of his walk. And Tan Rabbanan, Harav Talmud ad Ibura Shalir. So Harav there's Talmud to go ahead. He can go ahead and walk him to the edge of the city. Let's say a Karfe. This is the master to his students, right? So he only escorted students up to like a Karfe, which is 70 amos outside the town, and the Chaver, 2 friends, equal Adchum Shabbos, and Tamal Rav Ein Lo Shir. He walks in the whole way. The comment, how much is that? So Rav Sheshes. So Rav Sheshes says it is a ad parson. That's his full-time Rebbe. But Aval Rabbi Muvak Shleisha Parsos. But if it's full-time Rebbe, then it's 3 parsa. And we'll do a little more. So Rav Kana Alavi the Rav Shimi Bar Ashi Mepumnara Ad Beitzini. So he walked into the Bavel. So he walked into the space. Came out to Hasam when he got there. Amalei. So Vadai Dermisa Hani Tzinuso the Bavel. Right, so he says, so these 2 areas they're pointing out, these 2 palm trees, right? They were Mishane Adam Harishon Isnu. These 2 palm trees over here, you see them over there. Those, the rumor is they've been from the days of Adam Harishon. So he responded to them. For us in Milsa, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina, they actually reminded me, says Rabbi Yossi, told me, my Dixie was about to be Eretz Lo Avad Ba'ish, right? So it says a place where no one ever crossed and no one lived. I understand. No one ever crossed Syria. How could no one live there? Of course, no one lived there because no one even crossed there. Right? A place where Adam Rishon says this place will be inhabited, that will be inhabited. A place that is not supposed to be inhabited, then it will not be inhabited by people. All right, we'll stop here. All right, so tomorrow, Mr. Shem, we'll continue from here, and we almost finished. So tomorrow's a good time after minute.
Okay, what time is it?
7:40.